Well, Wednesday was a bigger day than usual because it was the commissioner's annual pre-Super Bowl press conference. Security was high. For some reason, they were taking a closer look at credentials. I'm not sure why they would have done that, but they did. And once everybody got inside and was assembled for the session, the commissioner eventually, it took several questions for him to get there. Once he got there, he got asked several questions about it, addressing the no call from the NFC Championship game between the Rams and the Saints, the pass interference that was missed, also a legal hit to a defenseless receiver, missed in real time. The commissioner eventually was asked point blank, why did it take you so long to address the mistake?
We addressed this immediately after the game. We spoke to the coach. The coach announced the conversation and the fact that this play should have been called. And we had several conversations with those clubs and other officials over the next several days. That's our process. That's what we always do, particularly with judgment calls. And so it was handled no differently, other than to make sure that we listened and communicated that to the officials. They did a lot of communicating. We did a lot of communicating for things like Rule 17 and others that came up. As I said to you, over our history, unfortunately, we have had officiating errors and other factors that have been a lot of focus and news, but the game of football is played on the field. And they're played by humans, they're coached by humans, and they're officiated by humans. And that's what our game is. And so we think that we're proud, obviously, of having the Patriots and the Rams here. We understand the disappointment of the Saints fans, the organization, and the players, and we understand that.
That talking point finally came out. Coached by humans, played by humans, officiated by humans. That's not good enough. They need to find ways to improve the officiating, but a couple of things from that. He mentioned Rule 17, which is the device that gives him the authority to go back and change an outcome, replay a game, go to a specific point in the game. And the fact that came up as part of the communications with the Saints. Yeah. That tells me there were some heated communications. If the Saints are saying, hey, you should do something about this under Rule 17, that means it got very serious. And the idea that they didn't come out and make a public statement because Sean Payton came out and publicly acknowledged that he got a phone call. Well, there have been 15 to 30 instances over the last 15 years where the NFL has publicly acknowledged a mistake. I still think they should have said something that night. So they just let us know that, yes, we made a mistake, and we're going to try to find a way to not make this mistake in the future. I think you put it perfectly a couple weeks ago when you said the NFL, their strategy is always to do nothing, sit, watch public reaction, then deny and say that, you know, this isn't what happened. And that's exactly how it went down. All they had to do was come out, say, we screwed up, we made a huge error, we're very, very sorry. What Roger Goodell said there is not wrong. No, it's a human game with human officials and human mistakes, and I think we all recognize it, but not being able to say that right after the moment and having to wait a week and a half, that is a fault, and that makes the league look stupid.
Yeah, I can't disagree with some of that for sure. I mean, yes, they addressed it. They addressed it with the people that were affected. You know, but again, I think the thing that bothers me is kind of the hypocrisy of the NFL. Once again, they're going to tell players and coaches to be good leaders and do all those type of things. Well, hey, great leadership would have got up in front of a podium shortly after that game, whether it was the next day or the day after, and you just have to take this situation head on and deal with it and make a statement like you're both saying and just say, hey, we really messed up here. There's no doubt about that. We're sorry. And I think we wouldn't be talking about it as much right now, and he wouldn't have had to address it as much as he did yesterday if they just kind of got in front of it a little bit.
I just thought of something while we were discussing it, which shows that I do absolutely no prep for the show, because I would have thought of this if I had spent time thinking about it ahead of time. Maybe. Sure. When he mentions Rule 17 within the confines of the communications they had with the Saints, it makes me wonder whether or not they resisted admitting right after the game that the mistake was made, because that ends up being the first domino that potentially could become this chain of, hey, the Rams are still in town. They haven't gotten on the plane yet. Let's go back.
Get them back out.
Let's get everybody back there now. You can't do it Tuesday. You can't do it Wednesday. You can't do it next Sunday. Everybody's still here. Everybody's still got a sweat going. Let's go back out and play the final 1 minute and 49 seconds of the game.
Do you think he was referring to that conversation there, or just the fact that Rule 17 came up?
No, what I mean is if they had, maybe Rule 17 came up right out of the gates. Maybe Sean Payton in the first conversation said, hey, there's authority in the rule book. I mean, I assume these coaches know the rules, right? Hey, there's authority to go back and fix this. And so if they don't acknowledge it was a mistake, you never light the fuse.
You never have to hit that Rule 17. The interesting thing going forward would be how this all played out. Now the Rule 17 is well known. Everyone knows this rule. Everyone knows that Goodell has this authority. Will he be sitting there in a championship game next year saying, there could be a scenario where I have to enact this and basically go back and replay a game with a couple minutes left? I don't think it ever will happen, but it does add a little element there that's interesting to watch.
Well, he was asked point blank yesterday whether he has the power to use it, and he claims that he doesn't in this situation.
So then why is it in there?
Well, and there's a specific provision in there that makes it clear it's not a device for teams to make protests and say we, because otherwise every week somebody would say, we invoke Rule 17. Hey, we don't like that outcome, invoke Rule 17.
Pop their tires and keep them in town.
So he's got to go investigate Rule 17 and decide whether or not it applies. He doesn't want anyone to force him to do it. He wants to have the power to do it. And he kind of boxed himself in because he suggested he doesn't have the power to replay the ending of a game based upon a bad call. I think he still does. And I don't think that takes it off the table. I just don't know why you have that rule in place if you're, I mean, when would you ever use it? That's what I've been trying to get the NFL to tell me. Give me an idea of what it would take. This rule is there. It's there for a reason. When would you ever use it?
Yeah, I can't even imagine when you would use it. What would be the instance to, I mean, are you smart enough to come up with something?
No, I'm not. But somebody who is told me that it would be an example like, let's say you were on the sideline. Remember when you were on the sideline recently and a guy ran into you? Remember that?
I do remember that. Thank you very much for bringing that up.
Let's say that you had careened off of that official and you had ended up like taking out Tyreek Hill. He was getting ready to catch the game-winning touchdown pass. And the officials didn't notice it and didn't do anything about it and just let it all stand. That's the kind of thing where the commissioner could say, wait a minute.
Good example.
Pack of wild dogs runs on the field.
Right.
Rule 17.
Rule 17. That's
it. Actually begins to feast on the quarterback.
We need to do this, though. You need to have a sit-down with Goodell and just have a list of hypotheticals and say, Rule 17 or not. Just go right down the
I go back
list.
to something you said, though, shortly after this, and I think it was spot on. Again, it really stinks that this happened. Like, we don't like this, but this is Super Bowl 53. We've never seen it happen. And, you know, I mean, again, I don't think we have to reinvent the rule book and every NFL bylaw just because I think this is a once-in-a-generation type of thing.
I disagree.
But this doesn't happen that often. Like, you're basically what you're saying is you need to change the entire way we play football and the replay system.
No. I think that we need to have, and the thing I keep coming back to, and Mike Pereira agrees with me, so I'm going to embrace it. If he disagreed with me, I'd say he's stupid. But he agrees with me. You add an eighth official who is there to watch the TV screens, to watch the monitors, to provide the perspective that the 7 officials on the field don't have. Because there's a gap between what those folks have. Number one, they're trying to stay alive because they're out there, middle-aged and older, potentially getting trampled. They can't see what's happening. You put an official in the booth who sees everything and can say, hey, Ed Hockley or Clete Blakeman or whoever, throw the flag, pick up the flag. We missed that. We missed this.
Okay, so, all right. So let's go from that. How many times a game do you think that's going to happen? How many times a game are we going to stop the game?
You don't stop the game.
Okay.
You just talk, just like, you know, you
think it can happen that quickly? Because I don't think it can happen
But
that quickly.
I also know that on Sundays when we sat together and watched games, you would get annoyed because you felt like they were waiting for the video board sometimes for calls, or they were waiting for New York to get in their ear to say,
I don't want to go.
We don't like this call or anything like that.
And now add on that, here's the other part of this that I don't think works. Okay? You have 7 guys, 7 refs, who want to be trusted. They all, I'm not going to say they have egos, but everyone wants to think that they're doing the best job they can do. Now you have an 8th guy watching over them, telling them every time they screw up, you know, buzzing them every time they miss a little thing. And those guys on the field are saying, well, guess what? You're not on the field. You're not seeing this, you know, live time happening right in front of your face. Now you have the second guessing fact. I think
it's not second guessing.
It's a very simple, what you've done is given a simple solution, and it's not that simple. It's a lot more complicated than what you've said.
If you use in that spot people who no
Well done.
longer have
Well
the
done.
physical ability to run around on the field. Let's say, 65, 70 years old, can't do it anymore, but still have that wealth of knowledge, have the authority, can talk to the referee, and I think it can be done very efficiently. We see referees huddle. We see them huddle all the time to talk about calls. We'll see that once a game where two officials come together and they decide whether or not a pass was caught.
But how many calls are they going to say?
Yeah,
like,
that's
how many
what I
calls
would
are
worry
you going to
about.
say?
Right.
And if you see something that is dramatically different than what the ruling is, and because here's the thing.
But what's the line going to be for dramatic?
Well,
like,
is it hold?
I might at home who played football. I go,
Is
that's
it a
not
pick
dramatic.
play? Is it pass interference? Is it, the refs are calling the game one way throughout the entire game, then the guy up in the booth is calling it a completely different way. The refs, you don't know what the refs are saying.
But
hey guys, we're going to let you get away with, we're going to let you play on the line today.
Right.
We're going to let you get away with a little something. We want to let you play physical.
Right.
What is the guy upstairs saying? Oh, well, that's hold. Oh, well, that's face guard. You know what I mean?
But the guy upstairs is part of the crew.
I
the
get that,
referee's
but
still in
he's not.
charge.
But he's not.
But he is. But
he never will be.
Put him in black and white stripes. Maybe you rotate. Maybe you have an 8-person crew, and like they rotate one person out every game, and so you're on the field one week and you're up there.
Wait,
the next
but you
week.
had a 65-year-old guy upstairs.
Well,
now he's downstairs running.
I'm changing the parameters.
He's out lawyering you today.
Let me say one thing.
He is out lawyering you today. I'm just telling you. He is all over you.
Let me. I object strenuously. Let me say one thing. The idea. What was I going to say? Oh,
he's got you flustered big time.
You won't let me say
No, Mike.
anything.
Listen. At the end of the day, I'm all for making everything better here, right? I want the perfect NFL. I don't want to see teams lose out on a Super Bowl because of a missed call. But I think it's a lot more complicated than people are making it out to be. And I think saying, well, just throw some guy up in the booth or just kick it to New York. You are going to sit there on Sunday and be upset when there are 10 reviews and you're sitting there and it's replay and commercial 4-hour games.
Let me just say one thing.
Yeah.
Something Chris was alluding to earlier, and he didn't give me a chance to explain what happens. When we watch the games at NBC and you see all of them being played at once, you can tell when the referee is hearing from Al Riveron at 345 Park Avenue and perhaps being told to do something that Al Riveron doesn't have the authority technically to tell him to do. So that already happens. You already have some obvious errors being corrected from time to time off the books by Riveron. And think of it this way. If Al Riveron had simply said to Bill Vinovich in that moment, drop a flag, there was obvious pass interference.
But we would be having an absolute...
we wouldn't.
Yes,
no, we wouldn't.
We would.
No, we wouldn't. Because they're not going to admit it to us.
But we would see a flag drop. There's 95 cameras, and we'd go, damn, he dropped the flag 15 seconds after the play.
What? It happens.
Well, then we'd be talking about, do you deserve to be here?
We would not be talking about a late
because
flag
the ref on the field wasn't really calling it.
Yeah, and where's the late flag for the face mask on Jared Goff?
Well, that...
That's where I think it is a slippery slope.
I want
it's already slippery.
It's already slippery.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.